Hey you guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Allie Wilkins. So today we're going to talk about the moon and why you should even care about the moon to begin with, but also how working with the moon can really support you. So in general, we're aware of the moon, in our society, we're aware of the moon, we are like, oh, the moon is full, but we're not really in the rhythm of paying attention to what the cycles of the moon, right? And this is such a perfect example of how we're really out of rhythm with Mother Nature. So hundreds of years ago, before more of a technological civilization began, we were very attuned to the moon and to the rhythms of nature, to the cycles of nature. This is being attuned to Mother Earth and really to the feminine cycle. But as we've become, in quotes, more progressive, more civilized, more advanced technologically, we've lost so much of that, and it's really damaging. I have a lot of other videos that are about that. So today we're going to focus on the moon. So why should we attune ourselves to the moon cycles or even pay attention to it? Isn't it just this thing in the sky? Like, what does it have to do with us? Well, at the most basic, the moon, just think about it this way. The moon completely rules the tides, right? It rules the high tides and low tides. It affects that so deeply. So if our bodies are made up of mostly water, how would we be any different than the ocean? If the ocean's tidal rhythms are ruled by the moon, wouldn't the water in our own bodies be ruled by the moon as well? And you can start to pay attention to how you typically are feeling during different moon cycles. So usually around the full moon, people will feel this in the most pronounced manner. Now, if you're a woman watching this, you can think about your menstrual cycle. First of all, thinking about what part of the moon cycle are you menstruating with? So our cycle is 28 days. The moon cycle is also 28 days. So you are probably attuned to a particular phase of the moon. That's really fascinating in itself to think about and to look up what that phase of the moon means, and then to think about where you are in your life, why your menstrual cycle, which has its own wisdom, the womb's wisdom, why it is synced up with a particular moon cycle. So that's a separate conversation. But the moon in general, going back to the idea of the moon ruling the tides and ruling the water in our bodies, a lot of us aren't even paying attention to how we are feeling during different cycles of the moon. When we start to pay attention to that, it's like, oh, this isn't actually just a random feeling. I am actually feeling this way during each cycle of the moon. And if you think about energy, if you think about wanting to utilize your energy in the best way or wanting to be most effective with your energy, we think about this in terms of productivity all the time. How can I be more productive? Well, the way that you can be most productive with your energy is learning about your natural rhythms of energy, learning about how you are being affected on an energetic level with the different cycles of life, right? So as a society, we all believe in the seasons, right? We see the seasons physically. We see the leaves fall off of the trees in the winter. We see the flowers start to bloom again in the spring. We are naturally going through these cycles on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on a seasonal basis, on a yearly basis, and throughout our life as well. So so much of the work that I do personally is helping to attune people more to the feminine cycles of nature. And that's in physical nature, but also just within ourselves, within our own individual bodies. Because we have been trained into a linear system where masculine energy does operate from a linear system. We all have masculine and feminine energy, but the feminine system is totally left out. So it's like we're trying to operate in life only on this linear basis, and that's just not how life works. Like we see it in nature. So how can we start to be most effective, most productive with our natural energy cycles is, first of all, paying attention to our energy. And I think a really easy way for us to, this is how personally how I started to learn this, but I think a really easy way for us to learn about our own energy is starting to pay attention to the moon. So there's two things that I want you to start paying attention to. There's many phases of the moon. There's so much you could learn about astrologically, but the easiest place to start, just start paying attention to the new moon. I have like a single hair here that's, anyways, start paying attention to the new moon and the full moon. That's it. Just start writing them down on your calendar. Pay attention to how you feel. The new moon is typically about the void. It's an empty space. We are starting to think about what we really want to be creating, okay? As the moon goes through its phases, that creation is starting to come into effect. So the new moon lasts about 2 weeks and the full moon lasts about 2 weeks. Sorry, I said that wrong because there's a bunch of phases in between that. Every 2 weeks there will be a new moon and a full moon, and there's many phases in between that. But on the days of the new moon, you are likely, this is a time energetically where we can be creating from total emptiness. So it's like, okay, I'm blank. What's the painting that I want to draw, that I want to paint? And then as the phases of the moon continue, that painting starts to complete. At the full moon, your painting's done, and it's like, okay, what didn't work about this process of painting? What didn't work in my creations? What am I going to do differently next time? What did I learn here, and what do I want to release? Like, oh, I'm going to release these stories that impacted how I created this painting. The full moon is it's like the expression is fully complete. This is also why a lot of times we have the most energy, or you will see people reacting like it's like people are crazy during the full moon. Sometimes everyone will react to full moons differently, but it's going to be the most expressed, what you're feeling. It's going to be the most obvious. Whereas the new moon, you might be like more still, more contemplative, more quiet. The full moon might be like you're full of tears, or you're full of rage, or it's like, or you just feel like it's going to be different feelings, which is so interesting when you start paying attention. Like, this is wild. Every full moon, I feel more expressive. I feel like there's something that's like, I'm like bubbling over with something. And it's your body's natural rhythm of putting you into a state of growing and purging. This is amazing for, first of all, our personal development. Like, this is a really fast way for you to grow and to learn what works and to get out of these stagnant cycles of life, which can often come when we approach life with a linear perspective. So back to the full moon. When you're in that phase of the full moon, it's a time of release. It's a time for you to think about what's not working. What am I ready to let go of? This is why often we'll do fire ceremonies, or like, you write down what you're letting go of and burn it. Or this is a time, if anything, attuned to the full moon cycles. Even if you just write it down once a month, pay attention to the full moons, because that's the best opportunity for you of like, okay, what am I releasing? What limiting beliefs have come up over the last month that I'm good on? I'm ready to release. I don't want this to come with me in my journey moving forward. So what I personally do, I call them moon ceremonies. Everybody might have their own certain, type of moon ritual. I call them sacred ceremonies. Everything that we do in life is a ceremony, but during the moon cycles, I started doing these ceremonies. I just created them myself years ago. I have them for free for you. I'm going to put them in the comments below so you can download them. They're 2 PDFs that you can use. They're totally free. I used to charge for these. So download it and try it out and see what you think. I actually have my moon ceremony books right here. So what I do is I print out the PDF, and then I write out the questions in my moon. You can see Moon Magic, my Moon Magic books. This is actually a new one. I just started a new one. What's really cool about writing them in a notebook like this is you can go through, like I just finished a notebook and I was able to look through the entire year of like, okay, when I started this, what was I moving through? What was I releasing? And then where was I at the end? And looking through the patterns throughout the year, throughout each 2-week cycle. It's just really cool and really powerful. So this is a natural way for us to start to attune to the rhythms of the feminine cycle. Now, this is important if you're a man too, or if you are more masculine. Like, this is important for everyone because we all have masculine and feminine energy. And it's also a great way to start getting attuned to just what's going on with you internally. Because sometimes we're just like living our life and we're so caught up in the busyness and all the activity, and we're not paying attention to what's going on within. This is a really powerful way for you to start paying attention to yourself, and also getting rid of ways of being faster. It helps you manifest faster as well, because you're starting to call things in that you desire. That's typically what we'll be doing with the new moon, calling things in that you desire, manifesting things, and then seeing what shows up within that manifestation. Because I teach about this a lot. This is a little off topic but related. Whenever we want to manifest something, we want to become a new version of ourselves, we want to step into a new way of being. Whatever does not fit that way of being is going to come up for a review. You usually will believe it. So for example, if you're like, okay, I am a millionaire, that's what I'm stepping into, or I am going to start a new workout routine. The thoughts that are going to come up of like, well, I'm not strong enough, I'm not this, I'm not that, well, I'm really bad with money, knock on wood, universe, I'm not saying this. Well, you know, all these stories are going to come up of why that is not possible for you, why that isn't going to happen, why it's not going to work again this time. But those thoughts are coming up because it's like, hey, we hear you that you want to become this, but these thoughts, the two things cannot coincide. So you need to get rid of these thoughts. Attuning to the moon cycles helps you do that on like literally a rhythmic basis. So it helps you understand yourself so much better. It helps you attune to the feminine cycle of energy, which honestly sometimes can be really jarring because it's not how the world operates, but we're shifting into that. And so like if you think about, our ancestors all understood this. I don't think that in like the last 1,000 years, I don't feel that they were probably attuning to it on an emotional cycle, maybe just like for farming purposes. But it's important for us to understand we are a part of nature. We are a part of this balance of life. And so of course we operate in cycles just like absolutely everything else does. So how can we learn how to utilize our cycles instead of pretending they don't exist, or just like, nope, everything is just linear, it all works like this? How can we attune to those cycles so that we can most effectively and productively use our energy, understand ourselves better, manifest easier? And honestly, for me, the most powerful thing is that it just ramps up your growth so much. Because first of all, when you become really in tune with how you're feeling, you can't hide from anything. And when you're really honest and vulnerable with yourself about how you're showing up, it's going to be, in quotes, good and bad, right? You're not going to like a lot of what you see, and you're also going to be proud of some of the things that you see. It allows you to start growing at such a faster rate that it just saves so much time. So, and also it just puts you in alignment with the universe on a much deeper level. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of what I want to share today in this video, just to keep it short. I'll actually add a couple other, just one or two other things. So after you look at the new moon and the full moon cycle, the next things to think about would be, okay, what is the sign that this moon is in? This part is like, you can learn a lot from looking at this as to how each moon is a little bit different. I'm just going to say this, you don't need to think about it too much. There are two forms of astrology. One is tropical astrology. This is like typical Western astrology. Just so you know, this is based on a frozen map of the stars from 2,000 years ago. So around the time of Christ, essentially. Astrology was banned in many areas, and so they were utilizing a map of where the stars were then. That's what Western astrology is. Vedic astrology is based on where the stars are right now. Vedic astrology is a lot more complicated. P.S. I'm not an astrologer, so I don't know how to like look at the stars and be like, the moon is circling Scorpio, or the moon is in Scorpio. I don't know how to do that. I trust the astrologers that I know, that they are an expert in that. But what is said is that Western astrology typically will be really showcasing what's going on in the collective or externally, but Vedic astrology will tell you what's going on a soul level, on an individual soul level. So there's benefits to both. With that being said, most of what you're going to find on the internet or on the social media is going to be based in Western astrology. So it's going to be like what's going on externally in the collective. And Western is basically like just a little bit behind, or I'm sorry, a little bit ahead of Vedic astrology. So Western astrology might say, oh, the sun is going into Taurus today, and Vedic might say it's actually going into Taurus next week. So it's not like it's super far off, but it's a little bit off, right? So anyways, after you look at just the two main cycles of the moon, the new moon and the full moon, which like I said, there's many phases in between that are also very powerful for you to pay attention to, but just starting with those two as a simple basic thing for you to start to notice. Then you can look at what is going on with the signs. So for example, tomorrow, if you're watching this like right when I just posted it, tomorrow there's a full moon in Scorpio. Scorpio is all about transformation. It's about death, sex, like all of these deep issues that sometimes are these deep areas of life that are sometimes like taboo to talk about, or they're more in the depths of things. So Scorpio is all about transformation. So when we're feeling a full moon in Scorpio, it's going to have a really different vibe than a full moon in Cancer. A full moon in Cancer, Cancers are like nurturing, loving, like open-hearted, like a lot of feelings. So a full moon in Cancer, like you're going to be crying. A full moon in Scorpio, you're going to be massively transforming. There's probably going to be ego deaths involved. It's going to be a very different feel. So that also helps you just understand your feelings a little bit more. You don't need to know what sign the moon is in. It really doesn't matter, but it will help you understand what's going on in your body a little bit more, and just kind of like gives you context, like, why am I feeling this particular way? Oh, the moon is in Taurus. Got it. Or, oh, the moon's in Sagittarius. Okay. So it just gives you a little bit of extra context. And you can kind of like, the other thing I'll say that's really valuable about learning about the moon cycles, particularly for women, but also this could apply to men too, but with your menstrual cycle, starting to think about like, okay, so I said both of the moon and our menstrual cycles operate on a 28-day basis, right? So if you start to track your cycle or track how you feel during the moon cycle, you'll start to notice like, okay, in the beginning of my period, I'm actually have tons of energy. During my period week, I'm starving. I cry all the time. I can't sleep. I'm really intuitive. I want to be by myself. Like you'll start to notice different patterns that you have during different times of your cycle. You can start to plan your life according to that. So I typically don't really plan stuff around the full moon because I know I'm probably, just for me, this is how I personally respond. I'm going to be like in whatever I'm feeling. I don't want to have other obligations. I'd rather do that like in between the moon cycle or even around the new moon. Because I just know that like during the full moon, I tend to be more in my feelings. I tend to be more like introspective and wanting to do personal work and wanting to journal and wanting to have fire ceremonies if I'm in that sort of mood during the full moon. So I want to be a little bit more by myself. So you can plan your life according to these moon cycles. Women, for your menstrual cycle, this is a game changer. I usually don't plan calls or live events or like things that will require a lot of energy when I'm on my period. Like I actually usually just keep that whole week blank other than like existing one-on-one clients or something, but I'm not going to be doing something that requires a ton of energy. I'll plan that stuff the first 2 weeks of my cycle when I have a lot more energy. So you can just kind of see, even from everything I've shared here, starting to learn more about the feminine cycles of life is a very different paradigm. It's a very different approach to how we live our life. But it gives us like this edge. It gives us like an advantage of how we can learn to really capitalize on our energy instead of just like, oh, every day is the same. Every day is equal. Like every day is equal, but you can learn to really capitalize on your energy. I don't like that word. I don't like the way that I just said that, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. So much of my teachings revolve around attuning us to the feminine cycles, attuning us to goddess energy, whether you're a man or a woman, bringing that feminine energy back, because we're all imbalanced in it. Most of us are operating from a much more masculine approach. Actually, honestly, like the true masculine and feminine energies of the holy energies of masculine and feminine energy are pretty much lost. And so we're starting to attune back to that now. I could go so much further because this is like a perfect segue into the cycles of the astrological ages of time, but we're not going to go there today. So if you want to learn more about that, I actually have a free masterclass on my website that was from one of the programs that I did. So if you go to alliewilkins.com/free gifts, I have masterclasses there. I'm going to be adding a lot more, especially over the next few months, but there's one already there. It's called the Divinely Funded Masterclass. And you can watch that for free. And it talks all about the astrological ages of time, but really all the work that I do like attunes you to feminine consciousness, attunes you more to the seasonal, to that cycle of life rather than like the straight line of life. So anyways, also last thing I'll say is in the comments, I will put the link for the moon ceremonies if you want to download them. I created them like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I still use them. And sometimes I'll skip certain questions, but like once you do it enough times, you just look at it, skim it, and then write what's coming up for you in your little journal. You can also print them out, but it's a great resource to have and it's free. So might as well see if you like it. I use it years later, so it's really helped me a lot attuning to the moon cycles. So if you enjoyed this, please subscribe, leave a comment, like it so that more people can find it. And I'd love to hear what your takeaways are. If you have any additional things you want to share about attuning to the moon, anything that's helped you as you've done so, or just something that you learned in this video that was helpful for you. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you later. Bye.